At the end of a career, your Uma can have these different types of things called sparks. There are blue, pink, green, and white sparks. Let's go over what those are. First, let's talk about blue sparks. There are speed, stamina, power, guts, or wit sparks. An Uma will always have one blue spark. They can't have more, they can't have less. Now, the type of blue spark you get is completely random. They each have a 20% chance, but the star rating isn't as random. The star rating can actually be influenced by your stats. So for a specific blue spark, if that stat value is less than 600, you have no chance of getting a 3-star. You're more likely to get a 1-star at 90%. If you have the stat value between 600 and 1100, you at least have a 6% chance of getting a 3-star, a 44% chance of getting a 2-star, and a 50% chance of getting a 1-star. If the stat value is above 1100, then you have a 20% chance of a 1-star, 70% chance of a 2-star, and a 10% chance of a 3-star. So just as an example, if you end up inheriting, let's say, a speed spark, the game will look at your speed stat of your horse. If it's above 1100, you have a 10% chance of getting a 3-star. So although you can't influence the type of blue spark you're gonna get, if you can try to get all your stats to above 600, you at least have a shot of getting a 3-star in any of the blue sparks. Now let's talk about pink sparks. Sometimes people refer to them as red sparks. They can come in 10 different varieties. They could be based off of your track aptitude, distance, or style. And then the number of stars are 1, 2, or 3. The number of stars are purely random. You have a 20% chance of getting 1 star, 70% chance of getting 2 stars, and a 10% chance of getting 3 stars. It's not based off of how good your Uma is. It's literally so random. You could have an Uma that career ended after 1 race. She could still have 3 stars in mile. However, the type of pink spark you get isn't as random as the star rating. So there are 10 different pink sparks you get, but the game will only consider aptitudes that have an A or above rating. For example, if you can see up there, I have an A in turf, sprint, mile, and front. That means that I can only get one of those 4 pink sparks. In addition, the aptitudes of my parents and my grandparents also help influence the type of spark I can get. So if, let's say, my parents and grandparents have all A mile, that means I have a higher chance of getting a mile pink spark. So in general, what people like to do is they'll try to make sure the Uma they're racing doesn't have a lot of variety in their track distance and style, so they can target a specific spark, and then they'll make sure their parents and grandparents have an A in that specific thing you're targeting. Therefore, you'll be able to have a higher chance of getting the spark you want. Green sparks are the Uma's unique ability. Therefore, each Uma can only have 1 green spark, and it's only going to be their specific ability. For example, Marzensky, her unique ability is red shift. Therefore, she can only have the green spark red shift. Now, of course, there is a caveat. For green sparks, your horse must be at least a 3-star horse or above. So, for example, if you have winning ticket, she's a 1-star, you can't have a green spark for her. You would have to increase her star rating. To increase an Uma's star rating, there's a couple of ways. One of them is just pulling dupes. You'll get star pieces, and then eventually you'll be able to get them to the next level. The other way is you can spend these things called statues. You get them from pulling usually, and sometimes events give them out. You can buy their star fragments and eventually increase their star rating. Just be careful when spending your statues. The value of a star fragment goes up every 25 star fragments you buy. The first 25 star fragments are 25 statues, the next 25 are 50, the next 25 are 75, and so on. So now we have white or gray sparks. Your horse can have any number of these or none at all. And there's kind of like 2 to 3 different types of white-gray sparks. There's really 2, but I like to say 3. The first one is a skill spark, the next one is a race spark, and then the last one is a scenario-specific spark. So skill white sparks are basically the skills that you bought during your run. If your skill is a base skill, it has a 20% chance of becoming a white spark. If it has a double circle or it's been upgraded, it has a 25% chance. And if it's a gold skill, it has a 40% chance. Additionally, if the parents and grandparents all have that skill, it'll also increase the chance of that skill becoming a white spark. But remember, your horse already has to own it for it to even be considered. And then the star rating of a skill is dependent upon the overall rating of your horse. So the higher the horse rating, the better chance of you having a higher star level. Then we have white sparks that come from races. Those can only be attained from winning G1 races, and they have usually an increase to a stat, and then they can sometimes have a hint bonus. The chance of getting this white spark is random. I haven't really been able to find the exact probabilities. And then finally, we have the scenario spark. This one's also pretty random. It comes from the scenario itself, and it can give some type of stat boost. For example, for the URA finale, this spark gave an increase to both speed and stamina. If I'm right, I believe all the stars are usually influenced by the overall rating of your horse. That's it on sort of how sparks are made. I'll do a video on how sparks can actually help your Umas become better. But if you have any questions, please put them in the comments section below. I'll try to link any guides I use or I think are helpful. And thanks for watching the video. Enjoy making your Umas!